morning. My name is Richard Wexler, and this is Caring in America, the podcast for caregivers and care recipients. So, we have an excellent guest this morning. I'm going to introduce her via her bio. Sami Nordlund is the owner and founder of Forever Fitness. She's a certified personal trainer. She works with she's a corrective exercise specialist and nutrition coach and certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. She's an online nutrition and fitness coach and specializes in helping driven individuals to reduce inflammation in their systems so they can decrease inflammatory symptoms, lose weight, increase energy, improve focus, and feel better than they have in years. As a wife and mom, she understands the challenges of creating a healthy lifestyle in midst of a busy life. Through her own challenges with chronic inflammation and numerous other issues, she has learned and grown as an individual and a coach. Sami, are you there, ma'am?
I am.
Good morning. Welcome
Good
to
morning.
our podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. As I was looking at your bio and doing some research, obviously you've gone through a lot, it sounds like, from an inflammatory standpoint, from gut issues, probably around that. And what challenges have you had to tackle, and how has that shaped how you coach people and your drive to help others?
Yeah. So I have been dealing with gut issues, had been dealing with gut issues, I should say, because that is past tense. But they started actually, I think, way before I even realized they started. But they reared their ugly head when my youngest turned 1, and he is now 21. So long time of dealing with with gut issues that ended up really spurring off into a lot of other health challenges. And that it took the form of joint aches and pains, of adrenal fatigue and hormonal imbalances and brain fog, and fatigue above all else was one of the main things I dealt with. So really tackling how to deal with those things in a natural way, because I've never been a big fan of medication and how they affect you, but just the fact that they're not really a solution. They're kind of a band-aid fix. And I really was about getting to the root of the issue. And so really had to tackle things from that standpoint. And so really finding how nutrition, how supplements, and the right amount of exercise, all of that could really help me to overcome those things. So went through quite a few treatments to really finally tackle what ended up being a systemic bacterial infection that was caused by the beginning of those gut issues. But yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. But the thing is that it's really, I feel like everything that I've learned has helped me to to know what works, how to tackle those things. But it's also driven my passion to help others, because I know what it was like to live with these symptoms, and I don't want anyone else to have to do that. So I just, my passion is to help others become the healthiest version of themselves possible.
Wow. Wow. No, I understand. And from my research, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like more than a third of the population in the United States deals with inflammation and all the issues that inflammation causes. Would you agree with that number?
Oh gosh. I would probably say it's probably higher. I think there's a lot of people who live with the symptoms without really realizing that they're living with those symptoms. I think too many people just write them off as age, stress, or something else, and just think this is just part of the aging process, when it's really doesn't have to be that way. So I don't know that I would agree with it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's way
And if
higher.
it's higher, I mean, I'm not going to say that's fine, that's horrible, but it sounds like
Yeah.
you're the expert in this area, not me. And it sounds like you're probably right. And as you were saying, I mean, inflammation, especially as we age, as you were saying, fatigue, joint pain, just a whole level of being uncomfortable, or in some situations, an immense amount of pain. How does someone really understand that they're dealing with inflammation, and what might be the symptoms? Is it what I'm talking about, or something else that people can zero in on?
So what I like to do is just really when I talk with people, just really kind of, you know, narrow down, what symptoms are you dealing with? So some of the main ones that I see people dealing with, if you're talking about chronic inflammation, a lot of what I just said. So I mean, a lot of people who come to me are dealing with, fatigue. If you're dealing with fatigue, and that is not just oh, I'm kind of tired, I really feel like I need to take a nap, but fatigue is more of a, like, from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, you are just bone tired and weary. That is what I'm talking about with fatigue. And that is not something that's fun to live with. I've been there, done that, not fun to live with. And if that is something that you've been dealing with for any length of time, anything longer than a couple months, that is a sign of chronic inflammation. So joint aches and pains that you have on a regular basis for more than a couple months, headaches on a regular basis, um, inability to lose weight, the gut issues, if you're dealing with stuff like um, constipation, diarrhea, gas, bloating, cramping, if that is something that happens, indigestion and acid reflux, those go along with those as well. If those are something that you've been dealing with for more than a couple months, definitely something you need to look at dealing with. But hormonal imbalances, brain fog, depression, anxiety, not being able to deal with stress well, all of those can be signs of chronic inflammation.
Wow, that's a lot of things that you rattled off. But folks that are listening out there, I mean, you want to really think about what Sammy's talking about, and different issues that you may be dealing with, and also the fact that you have chronic inflammation and you're wondering where that came from. You've talked about in your own personal experience, you've talked about what you see with a lot of others, and the correlation between chronic inflammation and gut health. Could you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because I think it can be a little bit of that, what came first, the chicken or the egg. And really, when it comes down to it, it really doesn't matter which came first, but you can have one that causes the other. So in some instances, like mine. So if you look back at my story and I trace it back, I started back in high school. I got food poisoning, pretty bad. And that is a time when you can actually get what is called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because the violence of the just the nature of food poisoning, throwing up, and all of that kind of stuff. You can get some bacteria backed up into your small intestine, and then what can happen there is, if that's not dealt with, it can just sit there, lie dormant, and essentially kind of grow in that environment, and then it kind of waits until the opportune time to rear its ugly head. So for me, it started with some essentially gut issues that stemmed into leaky gut. And leaky gut, just a real quick synopsis of what that is. It's essentially damage to the gut lining, where you end up with little holes that allow food, toxins, bacteria to enter into the bloodstream and get into areas where it should not be getting. So all of that stemmed from, for me, a gut issue. But then it caused chronic inflammation in my system. But then you can have people who are dealing with some type of chronic inflammation due to, whether it's, autoimmune, or it's, an injury, or you got sick or something, and you've got inflammation. But if that is not dealt with in and of itself, what can happen is it can cause gut issues. So they really kind of go hand in hand. I don't know that you can have one without the other, but either either way, it's something that is definitely necessary to deal with, or it will continue to just get worse.
Wow, that's pretty interesting, and that's a lot of information, Sammy. Obviously, folks, we're going to advise you this is happening. It's happening for, as Sammy said, for more than a month or two. Please see a physician.
Yeah.
But I want to talk, in addition to that, some of the things that Sammy does. So you start working with a client. This client is older. You're realizing from what they're saying, you're doing this online, there is a lot of chronic inflammation. There may be some of these gut related issues as well. What are you going to do from them from a physical standpoint? Just what is the program? And I know each individual is different, but what's the type of program you're going to put together?
Yeah. So, really, in general, if I have people who are coming to me and they're dealing with these symptoms and they've been dealing with them for a long period of time, usually what we will start with, I usually start out just really digging in, trying to get to the root, figure out exactly what's going on, so that I can know what they need best. But most of the time, nutrition is where we start. So, the thing about chronic inflammation is a lot of times what's happened is you do have leaky gut. I think that, we're talking about those numbers earlier, the third of the population dealing with chronic inflammation. I have a feeling that the numbers, if we really did, some full on testing, that the numbers for the people that deal with leaky gut in their system is probably so high. I think it's probably closer to like, over half the population deal with it. And a lot of that is unavoidable because of the foods and the toxins that we put in our system on a regular basis. So addressing that with nutrition first so that you can essentially, the way I like to look at it is you're taking out the foods that are inflammatory so that you can stop fueling the fire of inflammation. Does that make sense, Richard?
It definitely makes sense. And I want to ask you, I mean, are there certain foods you can tell? And again, I know everybody's different, but
Right.
are there certain foods out there
Hmm.
that really start that fire, keep that fire going, keep the
Yeah.
inflammation going?
Yeah, definitely. So there are some definite foods that I will always take off, that are just not on the list for people to be eating while they're starting a program. So, dairy, gluten, those are some of the main ones that I would say need to go. But if you're, someone who is dealing with, like, say, leaky gut, the issue is that to be able to deal with leaky gut and to you essentially have bacteria that's leaked into your system, and so to be able to effectively get rid of that bacteria so that it's not causing the symptoms that it's causing, like the joint pain, and other inflammatory symptoms, you need to starve that bacteria. And the foods that bacteria likes to feed on are foods that break down into sugars. And so for a period of time, I like to see people, and I recommend for most of my clients, is a diet that is, you essentially take out sugars, and starches and things like that are going to break down into sugars and feed that bacteria. Does that make sense?
It does. So I'm one of your clients, let's pretend. So wait a minute, I love sugar
Yeah.
and I love eating certain things. I mean, so I
Hmm.
want to work with you, but what are you going to tell me to eat that's better for me and may make me feel less inflamed and feel better, Sammy?
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to really focus in on lean proteins and certain types of vegetables, and healthy fats. That's what we're going to focus on, because the thing is if you want to feel better, I know it's hard to give up those sugars, but if you want to feel better, you're going to have to remove those things for a period of time so your body can actually heal the way it needs to heal.
Very interesting. So, again, we've talked nutrition. We're talking certain foods to take out, certain foods to introduce. Again, you're working with an older clientele. What are you going to start? And
Hmm.
I keep on saying it, everybody's different, their size, their
Hmm.
weight, etc.
Yeah.
What are you going to start recommending from an exercise perspective?
Yeah, so usually, like you said, everyone is different, and really, I always base it on where their current health status. But for me, strength training, whether that's starting out body weight or if it's incorporating strength, but that is always where I like to see people start, and a lot of that. It just has so many benefits to it. So, strength training and walking, those are my two top recommendations for most of my clients. But the thing is that especially with strength training, so many benefits. The older that we get, the more we need it. We need to build that. We need to build that muscle so that we can stay stable, so that we can stay strong, and independent as long as we possibly can. But it is also a way to also help with making sure that hormones are staying balanced the way they're supposed to, and we're maintaining bone density and all of that good stuff. So, and then walking, like I said, it would be, another one of my top ones. And a lot of that is just walking is so underrated in regards to the health benefits of it. But especially when you're walking through a period where you're trying to heal your body, that blood flow that comes from just that, light to moderate intensity walking, is so healing for the body. So those are my top two. That's where I would normally start with people.
That's excellent. Let's talk about walking a little bit more. So you're dealing with a client,
Yeah.
and maybe that client really hasn't done a lot of walking in the last so many years.
Hmm.
I mean, are you talking about
Yeah.
walking around their house? You talking about walking around the block? What might you start someone with? I'm assuming it's going to be gradual, but again, I don't want to put words in
Right.
your mouth.
Yeah.
Where would you start someone with as far as the length of walking?
Honestly, I think it really, like you said, it's going to depend on the person. If someone has not been doing any walking, and they're just really starting to try to get some activity going, then I'm going to recommend, let's get up, let's walk around the house a few, like throughout the day. Let's add in some steps, and then we'll start progressing to moving outside. But I'm all about, like, something is better than nothing. Like, moving around more, just getting in some more steps around the house. Example, my grandma, she's 96. We just got through caring for her for a while, and she's not used to a lot of walking. But even just getting her up every 2 hours to go to the bathroom, and having her do that walk, as opposed to just kind of sitting in her chair all day, that was I saw a huge change in her just with that little change. So, I would always start gradual and work my way up.
No, that's fantastic information. And again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're dealing with chronic inflammation, when maybe you're not in the best of shape physically, mentally,
Hmm.
my gut is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it is going to affect you mentally. It is going to affect you emotionally as you're dealing with the discomfort of the inflammation, the lack of fitness that you have. So, again, I'll let you talk. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would assume, tough word, that mentally, emotionally, in addition to physically, you're going to feel better.
Oh yeah, no doubt. The thing is that, what we've been talking about with the chronic inflammation, not only is, getting up and getting the extra, activity going to help you, you've got the blood flow that is, in and of itself going to be tremendous, have a tremendous impact on your body, mentally and physically. If you're starting to tackle even just the gut health as well, I mean, all of that is tied into your mental health. It's amazing to me. I think, they've been saying that the gut is like the second brain. There is huge impact, on your mental capacity, your mental function, all of that stuff when you're making the choices to focus on nutrition and to focus on exercise. Both of those things are going to impact your, how like brain fog, how you function mentally, but also just even your mood. Those things are, very much related and very much affected by your fitness level.
This is fantastic information as we get ready to wrap up our conversation this morning. No, it's a lot of great information, as we've talked about, and you've corrected me. Probably well over a third of the people in this country deal with inflammation. My guess, and I could be wrong, some of them think this is what I have to deal with every day. It's great to meet someone like you that can help them understand that there may be some alternatives that are going to make them feel better. Last question I have for you. So you're working with someone who's older, someone that really hasn't done, someone that has inflammation, someone that really hasn't done a lot of exercise and maybe eating the wrong things. If they go, well, Sami, how long is this going to take? How long is it going to take before I start feeling better? Is there a number you can give someone? What would you say to them?
Yeah. That once again can really be dependent on the person, how long they've been dealing with the inflammation, how bad that is. That can definitely change that. But I can tell you that for from my experience, that making changes in your nutrition first and foremost, because like I said, that's where I always will start with people. I have seen people even within the first week of making changes, already starting to feel better, already starting to see changes in those inflammatory symptoms. So, it's amazing the impact that the right nutrition and some added activity can have on those symptoms. And, I think most people will find they'll start feeling better very quickly.
That's excellent. So as we get ready to wrap up, as I said, so what contact information do you want to give out? Phone number, email, website? Please go ahead.
Yeah, let's go. I would go ahead and just give my email address, and that is just Sami, SAMI, at foreverfitnesstraining.com. That's probably the best way to reach me.
Perfect, perfect. So, folks, as I say on every episode, you want to reach out to me, you have questions, you have comments, you'd like to be a guest on our podcast. That email is eldered2023@gmail.com. So I really want to thank Sami for her time this morning. Great information that we're getting out there, folks. Until we talk again, have yourself an awesome day.